Welcome to the Roncast, where entrepreneurs find killer tips, techniques, and tools to start and growth hack any business. Brought to you by one of Canada's favorite business personalities, Ron Davies. Enjoy the show. That's it for this episode of the Roncast. Be sure to subscribe and tune in again for killer tips, techniques, and tools to growth hack any business. We hope you've enjoyed the show.
Hello and welcome back to the Roncast. I'm your host, Ron Davies. I promised you guys early on that among the business and life hacks, I wanted to share with you inspirational stories that are real stories. So not the BS you see on Facebook with the, so many people coming up with this stuff that poses how amazing their lives are. I wanted to keep this to people that are real, people that I know, people that you can look up and verify, because I think that's important. I think that's what real social proof is. The funny thing about social proof is that social media has become almost the opposite of social proof. There's so much fabrication. So, often we find ourselves kind of on an autopilot, right? We wake up, in the same house, put on pretty much the same clothes, take the same transportation to the same old job. And even things like New Year's resolutions, where we try to enact change, usually they don't even make it past like Valentine's Day, the middle of February, right? And while it's pretty natural and pretty normal for us as humans to get into routine, because that's where we're so comfortable, there's much to be discovered outside the confines of our comfort zones. In fact, in my experience, the places where I've had the most opportunity, and certainly the most opportunity for growth, have been every time I've stepped outside a comfort zone. When I was a kid, in grade school, I think I was in grade 7, one of the things they told us at the beginning of the school year in English class was that we were going to have to present a speech to the class somewhere around 3/4 of the way through the year. I was absolutely horrified. I had never been that far outside my comfort zone, and I really didn't want to go. And I remember the dread as that deadline kind of started rolling up. You got halfway through the year, and you had to start thinking about this speech. And honestly, for most people, if they're at a funeral, they would rather be in the casket than speaking and doing the eulogy in front of a bunch of people, right? The funny thing is, later on in life, that became one of my greatest joys, and I still feel like podcasting now is an extension of that, where I can't be in a room with you or at an event with you. We can kind of connect here, and I can share things with you, and I always leave the door open for you to share them back. So the comfort zone thing, it's a double-edged sword, right? We tend to create clutter and remain stagnant when we do the same old things. There's really very little room for opportunity or positive change to enter our lives. We definitely begin to see things differently and to look around us when we become more open to new possibility, new opportunity, and we can clear out fear. That same fear that I was talking about with doing speech in grade 7, right? It's usually the fear, or at least the energy of that fear, that's greater than what we actually have to do and change. You probably had to do a speech in school as well, and you remember you probably had days and weeks and maybe even months of buildup of fear to when you had to do that speech, or for you it might be something completely different. And then I did this speech, which was probably 12 minutes, I think, in grade 7. and then it was over. So for that 12 minutes of discomfort, that 12 minutes of being forced into a growth situation, I literally had days and weeks and months of fear about it. So if you're feeling yourself like you might be ready to make a change in your life, some kind of change, I want to share with you just one remarkable story from a lady that I know in Florida. And her name is Leslie Scott. I think she was about 52 when she sent this. And Leslie, I'm going to read it in her voice, okay? So it might sound a little bit weird, but I'm going to read it in Leslie's voice. And she had titled her story, "I left a miserable, high-paying job and rented a cabin in the wilderness." So this is Leslie's story. And actually, I think she still lives in Crescent City, Florida. At 42 years old, with 2 daughters just about to finish school, Leslie quit her 6-figure salary job working in a toxic environment and escaped to a cabin by a river. Single parenting, a horrible ex-husband, and a misogynist boss zapped my emotional well-being to just about zero. In 2009, with my kids now grown, I came to the conclusion that life was not meant to be so difficult and unrewarding, and surely there was another way. There was something more to it. I was going to rebuild my life from scratch, even if it meant losing everything I had in the process. So I rented a cabin in the wilderness and sat by a river for 9 months, living off my savings. I hiked, kayaked, read books, wrote, and unpacked all of my emotional baggage. It was restorative. It was cathartic. After 9 months, I found a job in the recreation industry. It was a total departure from what I'd been doing, but I loved it. And one weekend, I hired a seaplane pilot to drop me off in the wilderness for a hiking trip. On the way, we fell in love, and I ended up moving in with him. He was a flight instructor and trained me to fly a plane. And after a few failed business attempts of my own, I started a bath and beauty company called Walton Wood Farm, which has since become a multi-million-dollar international brand in just 3 short years. If I hadn't found the courage to start from scratch and step out of my comfort zone, I'd probably still be stuck in that car dealership working for that same tyrant today. I would not have met my darling husband, started a business, and would not have achieved my childhood dream of becoming a bush pilot. So that's Leslie Scott's story in my sort of bumbling way of delivering it to you. I want you to take a few minutes today and think about what is one thing you'd like to change in your life. Make sure it's something that does take courage, because it's only in facing courage that we experience growth and new opportunity. I don't know why that is. It's like some kind of universal law. I remember my father used to say, everything you want is just on the other side of fear. And I think as a young person, I didn't really understand that. I thought that was just kind of a dad's way of getting you to do something, or maybe getting you to take the garbage out. But seriously, I thought it was just his way of helping me understand something. But in later years, some of the almost serendipitous events. So I don't know how much you know about my background, but I served 22 and a half years in the military. And during that time, I was on the military in the Canadian Forces here in Canada, obviously. And there's a lot of fear involved in that business. And after I retired and got involved in internet marketing, so I was involved in the internet very early stages, dot-com bomb kind of era, I was doing a lot of conferences, mostly initially to learn more things, to take in more information about internet marketing. But ultimately, most of the conferences I went to, I knew more about it than the expert at the front. So I started trying my hand at being the expert at the front, first with small groups. And this was before things like meetup.com were around. So I would place little local ads and my brother, Rick, who was my business partner at the time, and I would develop internet businesses, quite literally, on our respective kitchen tables in 2 different provinces in Canada, about 2,000 kilometers apart. And we did that for some time. And one of our earliest successes was a venture called ProfitMart.com. And we had just under 10,000 paid subscribers who were paying between $9.97 a month and $29 a month. We might add a $50 a month subscription too, but my memory fails me on that. And like I said, this was from our kitchen tables. And with the proceeds from that, we bought investment portfolios, commercial real estate. We did all kinds of things. That was very early stage for me. But I had to step out of my comfort zone in order to get to that. And as a result of stepping out of my comfort zone the first time, I got better and better at doing it. Stepping out of the comfort zone. I've fallen on my face a few times, but that's that failure podcast. Failure is the only way to success. And even in Leslie's story here, you might have noticed that she had a few failed business attempts before her multi-million-dollar success with her company called Walton Wood Farm. So, I'm not lying to you guys. You know what? When I share with you guys about things like failure being important, dealing with failure, fear being important, facing fear, and as my father said, everything you want's on the other side of fear, this is legit stuff. This isn't BS. Tony Robbins doesn't come up with this stuff. It's already out there, and it's very good advice. So what I want you to do today is think about what's one thing that you wish you could do. Is it have a better relationship with maybe your significant other, or a better relationship with your children or your boss or your neighbor? Or do you want to try public speaking? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to build a hot rod in your garage? It's really up to you, but think of something that's going to take some courage. And if you need support, if you want help, if you want an accountability partner, I'd be happy to help you. And you can drop me an email with any questions about this podcast or any others. ron@theroncast.com. Hey, I'm here to support you. I want you to enjoy the happiness, the kind of happiness that I have in my career, in my life, in my relationships with my wonderful wife, Sonia, or any of my kids or her kids. We're a blended family. I've had to remove myself from a toxic marriage in the past. I know that can be very difficult, and that does take a lot of courage. Boy, I remember it's not that long ago. It's 10 years ago. And I remember going through, the accountants assessing the value of the businesses I was involved in. I'm always involved in a couple, and wow, all the hardship and the awful texts. But I knew in the end, it was better for my kids to not be growing up in a toxic household with parents that, couldn't stand being around each other. Unfortunately, that's what it became. And now I have a wonderful marriage. My kids are well adjusted, and they're very courageous and level-headed, and that's a really cool thing. They're ambitious, and they don't just sit around and wait for the handout. They go after it themselves. So anyway, think of something that you would like to face head on, and we can do that together as a group. I don't know if you guys are interested in me starting a Facebook group. I'm not a huge fan of Facebook. I think it's just become a complete perversion. There's so little truth and honesty on there now. But it might be a good mechanism for us to be able to get together as a group and help one another. One way or the other, once again, I've kind of overshot my 10 minutes by a couple. This is the Roncast. I'm your host, Ron Davies. Get up the courage, make the change you want to make. We're here to support one another, and have a wonderful day. Bye for now.